John Kerry faces calls to resign over leaked Iran tape, even though he's not the Secretary of State. He's the climate guy, so we'll figure out what's going on with that. North Carolina may be under some pressure right now because of the fact that there was a shooting and it appears to be damning for the police. So we'll talk a bit about what happened there. Several states have lost and several states have gained congressional seats, so we'll shake down and see who are the big winners and losers over the census this year and who's going to lose seats and where those seats might go. And the White House is distancing itself from Kamala Harris's book because, well, that just reeks of corruption. It's going to be all this and more. Hey, 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 do you trust the plan yet? I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar, and we have got a doozy of a show today because, the swamp's going to swamp, and we've got two instances of that going on, plus a lot of other stuff that happened throughout the past day and even couple days here. Some of the stuff that I missed as we went through the week and as we went into the Red Net show because, you know what, we all had to pay attention to the Chauvin verdict and what happened there, and Micaiah Bryant, and all this other stuff meant to distract, so make sure that you don't hear about some of the stuff that we're going to talk about today. So we're going to get through it all, but before we get started, go on over, check out my friends from the Freedom Scoop Media Group. Pardon our dust, we are still under construction. We are continuing to fight through and get everything done up and ready to go. But while we are over there, while you're checking out my friends, make sure that you bookmark and check out all my friends, the Freckles and Brit Show, the Breakdown with Birkenhoff, the R-Rated Conservative, the Daily Ignoramus, and the Generational Gap. Head on over there, check out all of my friends, make sure you're following all of them, and once we get back up and running, you will have a great place where you can sit back and enjoy all of their programming, all in the same place. We will continue once again to carry everybody's backlogs, plus we will have written articles, a way to support great creators. It's going to be a great time. I'm definitely looking forward to having the website back up to showcase what it is that we as Freedom Scoop Media Group creators want to showcase to you. So definitely looking forward to that. Bookmark the page and help us support great creators. All right, looking in at the finance for the day. Looks like we had an up day yesterday. It started up and then it just kind of started tumbling all the way back through, culminating with a significant drop at the end of the day. So we'll look at some of the factors that came into that and what some of that's going to mean as we move into the next trading day. So we'll see what happens there. Our Bitcoin went up once again. Bitcoin is now sitting at $55,018 US dollars and 80 US cents. So those of you who bought the dip are probably looking a little bit happy right now. You're not rich, you're not retiring if you bought the dip at this point, but you got a couple bucks in your pocket, so that's going to be a thing. Oh, and by the way, speaking of a couple bucks in your pocket here, I want to thank Matthew Hammond and Quest Fanning for throwing us a coffee last night. That was pretty cool of you guys, so definitely looking forward to entertaining you guys more. If you guys think that I do a good job, there will be a link occasionally popping up in the live chat to let you guys donate to us. It doesn't look like it's working right now, but we'll figure out what's going on with that and what that means, but definitely looking forward to that. So, and thank the people who think that I'm doing a good enough job to throw me a couple bucks. Awesome. All right. On the fuel prices around Madison, Wisconsin. Looks like they're actually going down just a little bit at this point. $2.57 across most of the city. We don't see a lot or as many 259s as we did yesterday, so looks like maybe we'll see a little bit of relief coming into this. I mean, are we going to get back down to 99 cents? Probably not, but a little bit of relief is always good. With fuel coming down like that, even if it's a couple cents, maybe I'll buy the dip too. Who knows? All right, let's see where IBD is telling us we're going to be. From Investors Business Daily. Dow Jones futures signal gains ahead of Fed meeting. Tesla slides despite earnings beat. From Scott Latonin, Dow Jones futures, along with S&P 500 futures and NASDAQ 100 futures, were higher early Tuesday ahead of this week's Fed meeting. Tesla stock slid despite strong earnings and sales results after the close on Monday. On Monday, the tech-heavy NASDAQ composite advanced 0.9%, the S&P 500 moved up to 0.2% to hit a new high, while the Dow Jones Industrial Average traded down 0.2%. Among the Dow Jones leaders, Apple rose 0.3% on Monday, while Microsoft edged higher in today's stock market. Disney is approaching a new buy point but remains below a critical level. Tesla rallied more than 1% Monday ahead of the company's earnings results. After the close late Monday, Tesla earnings beat the street's estimates, but shares slid in pre-market trade Tuesday. Meanwhile, hot IPO stock Coinbase Global rallied 4.4% amid the resurgent price of Bitcoin. Among the top stocks to buy and watch are Generac, Nvidia, and PayPal are in or near buy zones. Generac and Microsoft are on the IBD leaderboard. Nvidia and PayPal were featured in this week's Stocks Near a Buy Zone column. On the futures, ahead of the stock market open Tuesday, Dow Jones futures along with S&P 500 futures and NASDAQ 100 futures were slightly higher versus fair value. Remember, trading in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. On Tuesday, the Federal Open Market Committee starts its two-day meeting with remarks from Fed Chief Jerome Powell due Wednesday afternoon. No major policy changes are expected. So, looks like this meeting that they're going to have is going to affect where it goes, even though they're saying that no policy changes are going to be expected. So we'll see what happens with that, and we'll continue to watch the stocks and see where those go. All right, reading from the street. Dow futures gain. Jim Cramer says next 3 days are the most important of the year. From Martin Bacardax. U.S. equity futures edged into the green on Tuesday, while the dollar found favor among its global currency peers and Treasury yields bumped higher as markets headed into what Jim Cramer calls the most important 72 hours of the year. Big tech earnings highlighted by Google, Get Report, and Microsoft tonight, and Apple, and Facebook tomorrow, as well as a Federal Reserve policy meeting and a spate of industrial and pharmaceutical updates over the next 3 days will set the tone for market performance between now and the end of the year, following record high closes for the S&P 500, 100, and NASDAQ. All of this, too, is set against a $62 billion auction of 7-year Treasury notes later today that has in the past triggered sharp equity market declines in the wake of weak investor demand. At present, analysts aren't expecting any changes from the Fed's accommodative policy, which includes record low interest rates and $120 billion a month in bond purchases, but any suggestion of a near-term change in focus or discomfort at the pace of rising consumer prices, coupled with muted outlooks from any of the FANG names reporting in the next 3 days, could provide the sternest test to equity market momentum in more than a year. Futures are indicating a cautiously positive start to the session, however, with context tied to the Dow Jones Industrial Average, suggesting a 5-point opening bell gain, and those linked to the S&P 500 price for a 5-point bump to the upside. GE, Eli Lilly, UPS, 3M, and Raytheon will report March quarter updates prior to the start of trading, with Starbucks, Visa, and Texas Instruments joining Google and Microsoft after the closing bell. First quarter S&P 500 profits are expected to rise 34% from last year to a share-weighted $362.8 billion, according to Refinitiv forecasts, and 85.4% of the 125 companies that have reported so far have topped the street's forecasts. So they're pointing to the fact that everybody's going to keep going, but we're still looking at the fact that there's going to be another massive not stimulus, but infrastructure bill that's going to be coming down the pipes as soon as everybody figures out what the hell is going on in the country. And we're also looking at the fact that we're talking about capital gains taxes going through the roof and corporate taxes going through the roof too. So it's going to be a wild ride throughout this year on the market. I hope you guys are protected. I hope that you're in safe stocks. I would not be in anything aggressive at this point. But that is also not financial advice. Official, talk with your investor as to what he feels is the best investment for you. All right, let's get into the big news of the morning. Starting with the Hill. I had such a hard time deciding what was going to be the top story because John Kerry was a big story. The census and states losing congressional seats was a big story. Kamala Harris was a big story, and North Carolina was a big story. But I think this is going to be the best order at this point. All right, from the Hill. Kerry faces calls to step down over leaked Iran tapes. From Rachel Friesen and Laura Kelly. John Kerry, the U.S. Special Envoy for Climate Change, is facing calls for his resignation from Republican lawmakers and pundits for reportedly discussing Israeli military operations with Iran's foreign minister when he served as then-President Obama's Secretary of State. Okay, so this isn't a recent one. This is something that actually happened under Obama, which honestly makes it a little bit worse, I'm not going to lie. Republican blowback is running the gamut for calling for Kerry to leave his position as the top official addressing climate change to calling for an investigation and his prosecution. Biden administration officials are dismissing the allegations, saying the information Kelly allegedly shared was widely known at the time. Senator Dan Sullivan called for Kerry's resignation in a floor speech, one of several senators to do so on Monday. I don't do this lightly in my entire time in the Senate. I've never called for anyone's resignation, Sullivan said. But his record, John Kerry's record of undermining working families and working against American national security interests, was too much to bear. He needs to go. When I read this today, I was astonished as well that a former Secretary of State, now a member of President Biden's National Security Council, would reveal the secrets of one of our most important and enduring allies in the region to an avowed enemy, he added. The New York Times, a former newspaper, and other outlets reported on Monday that leaked audio, recorded in March, captured Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif, saying that Kerry told him that Israel had attacked Iran's interests in Syria at least 200 times. Zarif reportedly expressed astonishment at the revelation. Zarif did not say when Kerry, who served as Secretary of State between 2013 and 2017, made the admission. Kerry categorically denied the allegations in a Monday evening tweet, saying, "This never happened, either when I was Secretary of State or since." Well, you're on tape, dude, so... I don't know, are we Watergating again? Are we going to hear Kerry say, "I am not a crook"? State Department spokesperson Ned Price would not comment on the contents of the reportedly leaked audio, but appeared to dismiss that the Iranian foreign minister's astonishment was genuine. I would just make the broad point that if you go back and look at the press reporting from the time, this certainly was not secret, and governments that were involved were speaking to this publicly, on the record, he said, in response to a reporter's question at a briefing on Monday. An Israeli official in 2018 confirmed that Israel had struck 200 Iranian targets in Syria, the first public admission of a covert campaign that was long suspected to be carried out by Israel. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, since the outbreak of the Syrian war in 2011, had raised alarm that Iran was exploiting the conflict to expand its own operations in the region, and publicly stated frequently that Israel would act to prevent weapons transfers to Lebanese Hezbollah, which is backed by Iran. As early as 2013, Netanyahu emphasized that Israel's policy would be to act to protect its own defense and self-interest, considered a thinly veiled admission of responsibility for a number of covert airstrikes that had occurred in Syria against Iranian-backed activity at the time. So, I have a lot of questions at this point. I have a massive amount of questions about this, and I don't even begin to know where this goes and what this means for current foreign relations, not even what was happening in 2013 to 2017, but for current relations, because, remember, The Biden admin is trying desperately to convince you that they're going to try and get out of Afghanistan by September 11th, in spite of the fact that we were agreed to be out of there by like next month, which is in like 3 days. So I have a lot of questions here, and I mean, where do we go from here? Now, of course, I came into this thinking that this is something that happened recently, and that the special climate envoy was going out to try to inflame tension. So this is a little bit calmer than I thought this was going to be when I first saw this article, this headline, and everything else that was going. But even still, yes, John Kerry should step down at this point. He shouldn't be anywhere near the government if this is the way that he was doing things back in 2013, because, what is he doing now? If this is what was leaked then, what is he doing now? Other than living on a Heinz fortune, plus a government pension and everything else. This is corruption in its deepest sense. And furthermore, I look at this, and I look at Secretary of State Kerry and Secretary of State Clinton, too, on all of this. And the fact that it does appear on numerous occasions that the two were trying to destabilize the region. I mean, what else are you going to do? You're going to go over to the historical enemy of Israel, Persia, now Iran, and say, hey, I heard a rumor that those guys over there that you don't like at all, hey, they were taking out some of your targets over in Syria. What are you going to do about it? You want our help? You want our army? Come on, you know you do. I mean, this reeks of that kind of thing, that kind of corruption that goes along with that. All right. Let's see. I got one from Politico on the same thing because, well, the GOP is doing what the GOP does, and we're jumping on this one because, my God, what are we going to do? So, from Politico here, GOP tears into Kerry amid Iran controversy. From Andrew Desiderio and Burgess Everett. Republicans on Monday called John Kerry to resign from President Biden's National Security Council over claims that he revealed sensitive information about Israeli military operations to Iran. According to leaked audio revealed Sunday by the New York Times, a former newspaper, Iranian Foreign Minister Javad Zarif told Kerry that, Javad Zarif said Kerry told him that Israel attacked Iranian assets in Syria at least 200 times. Zarif added that he was surprised that Kerry would reveal that sensitive information to him, according to the audio. People are talking about treason, and I don't throw that word around a lot, Senator Dan Sullivan of Alaska said in a brief interview. John Kerry does all kinds of things that I can't stand, but this is the one that broke the camel's back. Sullivan tore into Kerry in an earlier speech on the Senate floor, knocking him for arrogantly killing American jobs in the name of climate goals and saying it was his first time calling for a resignation. Other GOP lawmakers quickly followed suit. Well, I wouldn't say treason. That would not be treason, even though Israel is our most important ally at this point. Treason would be John Kerry going over to Jarrah Saeed and saying, hey, by the way, this is where all our missiles are, so if you do this carefully pinpointed airstrike here, you're going to cripple our country here, and you can come in and we'll be right for the taking. Just hit here, here, and here. That would be treason. This isn't treason. It sucks. It's corrupt. And it does scream of trying to destabilize a region. But it's not treason. It's unfathomable that any U.S. diplomat, past or present, would leak intelligence to the world's leading sponsors of terrorism at the expense of one of our staunchest allies, added Wisconsin Representative Mike Gallagher, a rising star Republican on national security issues. Kerry, the former Secretary of State, Mass Senator, and Democratic presidential nominee, serves as Biden's climate envoy on the NSC and was a chief negotiator of the 2015 Iran nuclear deal. His role in that accord has drawn him scorn from Republicans and some more hawkish Democrats. Importantly, Zarif's version of events has not been independently corroborated. His remarks to an Iranian academic were leaked by a London-based media outlet. It is also unclear whether Kerry allegedly revealed the Israeli operations to Zarif before they were publicly reported by Israel itself in 2018. Well, I mean, if Zarif was shocked, it doesn't really matter whether or not it was public. You're still trying to destabilize a diplomatic situation. Kerry denied Zarif's account in a tweet later Monday, writing, "I can tell you that this story and these allegations are unequivocally false. This never happened, either when I was Secretary of State or since." Senator Lindsey Graham appeared to defend Kerry, urging caution about Zarif's reliability. "I don't know if we should trust this tape or not. If it's true, it's very damaging," Graham said. "I like John Kerry." Of course you do. "But that would not be helpful. It would be very problematic if it were true. But let's wait and see how authentic this is." And yes, I also am going to wait and see what the authenticity is. But, I mean, regardless, the guy was on tape. And, of course, what did we learn about how Democrats feel about what's on tape? What did we learn from the trial of Derek Chauvin in the killing of St. George? If it's on tape, then we have to accept it as fact. No matter what. You shouldn't even get your day in trial if we have it on tape. It's interesting to me what the double standard is for this. Now, I would actually urge the double standard to go the other way. You know, let's wait for the facts and let's see what Kerry has to do with this. And also with Chauvin, and with Wright, and with Micaiah Turner. Is it Bryant or Turner? Anyway, with Micaiah, the girl over in Ohio. Let's wait for all the facts to come out. I mean, even if you've got the tape, there's still probably an underlying condition that goes along with that. So, let's see what's happening with Kerry, and let's see where this goes. But he's pretty heavily implicated at this point. All right, I got one here from USA Today. Going on, shifting gears, talking about a different story. What is on the video that is so damning? Andrew Brown Jr. family waiting as body cam footage redacted. State of emergency declared from John Bacon. The mayor of Elizabeth City declared a state of emergency Monday as authorities in North Carolina worked to redact body cam footage of the fatal shooting of Andrew Brown Jr. before allowing the black man's family and lawyers to view it. The family and its representatives plan on viewing the video at the Pasquotank County Sheriff's Office, lawyers said at a news conference where they urged immediate release of the video. City officials realized there may be potentially a period of civil unrest within the city following the public release of that footage. Mayor Betty Parker said in an emergency declaration. Lawyer Harry Daniels said the family was told that they could see the video at 11:30 a.m. Monday, only to be told about an hour before that time that the video was being redacted and would not be available until later in the day. County Attorney R. Michael Cox said in a statement that the state allows for blurring of faces to protect an active internal investigation. That process takes time. The lawyers said they wanted the raw video, not a redacted version. What is on the video that's so damning? Lawyer? Oh, wait for it. Who could it possibly be? Ben Crump asked. Does this guy just... I mean, what's the civil rights version of an ambulance chaser? Because that's what this guy seems to be. He is everywhere around the country. As soon as he finds out that there might be something at all, anywhere in question. Now, to be fair, he went straight from Minneapolis to Ohio and now to North Carolina, so he's going, right in that same direction. But still, my God, what? Brown, a father of 7, was fatally shot Wednesday by deputies serving warrants in Elizabeth City. Few details of the shooting have been released, although first responder can be heard on dispatch audio saying, "Be advised, EMS has one male, 42 years of age, gunshot to the back." Sheriff Tommy Wooten said that deputies shot and killed Brown while serving drug-related search and arrest warrants. The warrants say investigators used information from an informant, including recordings of drug buys, according to court documents released on Monday. Public release of the video, demanded by advocacy groups, requires court approval. Wooten said that he would seek the approval, but not until he is assured by the State Bureau of Investigation that the release would not compromise its probe. Wooten, who has heard a chorus of calls for his resignation, won support Sunday from the chairman of the county commission, Chairman Lloyd Griffin, asked the community for patience as the shooting investigation continues. Rushing the gathering evidence and interviewing witnesses would hurt any future legal case that might be brought in the wake of the tragedy. Griffin said, "Justice, when done right, takes time." Well, a lot of times in something like this, they don't want justice, they want retribution. So keep that in mind as we go forward and look into this. And that was prior to the release, but it looks like the video has been released at this point. Attorney for Andrew Brown Jr.'s family says video of fatal police shooting shows execution. From Natasha Chen, Gregory Lemos, and Eric Levinson. The family of a black man who was fatally shot by deputies in North Carolina last week were shown Monday a short snippet of police body cam footage that one family attorney described as an execution. Andrew Brown Jr., 42, was fatally shot by Pasquotank County Sheriff's deputies in Elizabeth City on Wednesday when they attempted to serve him with an arrest warrant, the sheriff's office said. Few details and no video have been released publicly about the shooting. In dispatch audio from that day, first responders can be heard saying a man had gunshot wounds in the back. A copy of his death certificate says he died as a result of a gunshot wound of the head. On Monday afternoon, after an early delay, Pasquotank County Attorney Michael Cox showed Brown's family and attorneys a short clip from one deputy's body camera that the family attorney, Chantel Sherry Lassiter, said showed execution. Sherry Lassiter said the video was 20 seconds long and shows deputies shot at Brown as he sat in his vehicle with his hands on the steering wheel. He wasn't reaching for anything, he wasn't touching anything, he wasn't throwing anything around, she said. Brown then put the vehicle in reverse and backed out of the driveway, and deputies shot at him as he drove off, she said. The vehicle, riddled with bullet holes, crashed into a tree, she said. The family's attorneys decried the lack of transparency and disrespect in only showing a short clip from the single deputy's body camera. About 7 or 8 deputies, each presumably equipped with a body camera, were on scene, Sherry Lassiter said. In a video statement posted to Facebook, Pasquotank Sheriff Tommy Wooten said, "This tragic incident was quick and over in less than 30 seconds, and body cameras are shaky and sometimes hard to decipher. They only tell a part of the story." The sheriff has said there were many body cameras at the scene. Chief Deputy Daniel Fogg said it would be inappropriate to comment on the case until all evidence is collected. They were trying to hide something, civil rights attorney Ben Crump said. They don't want us to see everything. Khalil Farabee, one of Brown's sons, told CNN's Anderson Cooper 360 that the family was heartbroken. Okay, so we've got a few more questions off of this. Now, of course, if you read a headline off of this, and of course the headline was worded in a certain way, because now we're going to sit back here, and we're going to see half the country look at this and say this is justified, and half the country look at this and say this is an outrage. Your next situation. Why are we having so many of these situations too, by the way? When, what was it, in 2019, there were like 9 of these situations across the entire year, across the entire country. And now they just keep happening, one right after another, after another, after another. So I got to ask, what the hell is going on? What's going on in our police system and what's going on in our communities that's causing the police to be out there like this? Now, initially looking at this, and initially in the article, which was where CNN went to try to put this, we hear that he was just sitting there with his hands on the wheel. He wasn't trying to do anything. He wasn't doing anything like that. He wasn't reaching for anything. And then just a few lines later, we hear that he started to back down out of the driveway and the deputy shot at him. So, I'd like to hear the voice recording of what happened with this, to figure out what the discussion was happening, why he was backing down out of the driveway, and if he was executed, if that's what happened with that, which it doesn't sound like it was at this point. then yes, put the deputies in prison. But I want to see what happened and what this means. I actually want to see the video for myself. Instead of looking at this and seeing the mainstream outlets come out, like the USA Today and CNN, coming out to try to tell you that this is going to be the next thing to be outraged about and burn more cities down. So, we will see what happens with this, and I'm sure, unless this comes out in the favor of the police, for whatever reason, that we're going to be hearing about this for quite a long time. Let's keep going. All right, remember last week when we were talking about Democrat Representative Jewel Jones coming out and telling us that he shouldn't be arrested because he controls the police budget? Well, here's the dash cam of that incident.
No, I already told you no. I already asked for your driver's license and your ID.
All right, so take your hand off me. I'll give you my stuff. Take your hand off me. I got you. You gotta make sure they don't pull off before I pull off, right?
You're not going anywhere right now.
You're gonna take me with them, though, right?
Listen to me. We're gonna do this one step at a time. All right?
Okay. Can I get my phone first?
No. Right now, I want your ID and your driver's license. Okay?
I can't do that. The only reason.
Don't tense up.
I'm tensing up.
Don't tense up.
You're not gonna be able to get it. You're not gonna be.
Stop resisting. Stop. Stop resisting.
You're not gonna be able to get it. But I'm telling you, if you do that, that's not gonna be good.
Stop.
It's not gonna be good for you. I'm telling you.
Stop.
No, I run y'all budget, bro. I'm chilling. I just want to talk to y'all. I won't move. I won't go nowhere. I just want to talk to you.
We got this one. Give me your right. Give me your left arm.
I just want to talk to you, bro.
We're going to. Give me your stop resisting.
Let go of my arm.
That's how I'm gonna get taken.
I don't like this because
Give me your left arm.
Bro.
Stop resisting.
Bro, I've been abused by the police so much because I'm black. When I call Gretchen, I need y'all IDs and badge numbers and everything. I told y'all already. I will sit here and give y'all my shit if y'all fucking let me sit up. That's all I said. I work with y'all. I don't give a fuck. I work with the police. You're not fucking with me, bro.
And there you have it. The situation of everybody's an asshole. Because at that point, everybody's an asshole. So, to break this back down, we looked at the story last week where Jewel Jones came out and said that he was telling the officers that they shouldn't be arresting him because he controls their budget. Which is corrupt and bullshit in and of itself. But now we see the dash cam video. And he did have a loaded gun in the car. Keep that in mind. So, sending him to go in to get his cell phone, that's probably not going to be the way to do this. But on the other end of this, you know, taking the guy to the ground like that, pushing him down, screaming stop resisting off of that, that does seem to be a little bit excessive as well. So this is looking like a situation where there are no good guys. There are no good people in this one. Jewel Jones is a corrupted fucking prick who comes out and says, I'm going to call Gretchen, I'm going to have this go away. And the police are, well, being police. Have everybody resign and move on with your day because nobody in this situation should be in the position that they are. All right, let's keep going here. I got one from The Blaze. DOJ launches bias probes into Minneapolis, Lowellville police departments, and more are likely coming. From Phil Shibber. Attorney General Merrick Garland announced Monday that the Department of Justice has opened up a sweeping pattern and practice investigation into the Lowellville Metro Police Department to probe whether systemic racial bias exists within the department. The news followed the launch of similar investigation into the Minneapolis Police Department last week, following the conviction of former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin for his role in the death of George Floyd in late May. Chauvin was pronounced guilty of murder and manslaughter by a jury on April 20th for kneeling on Floyd's neck for more than 9 minutes during an arrest while Floyd repeatedly said that he couldn't breathe. The incident, which was captured on video, sparked violent protests across the country over alleged racial injustice and police brutality. By launching 2 local police department probes within a week, the Biden admin appears determined to take on a much larger role in monitoring and overhauling the local policing under that suspicion that systemic racism exists within the nation's police departments. During a meeting following his announcement of the Minneapolis probe, Garland told leaders of some of the nation's largest law enforcement organizations that more investigations will be forthcoming, the Wall Street Journal reported. In a news release announcing the Louisville probe, the Justice Department said it will assess whether LMPD engages in discriminatory policing and also whether it conducts unreasonable stops, searches and seizures, and arrests, both during patrol activities and obtaining and executing search warrants for private homes. The investigation will include a comprehensive review of LMPD policies, training, and supervision, as well as LMPD's systems of accountability, including misconduct, complaint intake, investigation, review, disposition, and discipline, the release noted. While the release made no mention of Breonna Taylor, the police-involved incident, which resulted in her death, almost certainly served as the impetus for the investigation. So, a lot of stuff going on with this, and honestly, full on out, this does make me just a bit nervous when I look at something like this, because we're looking at the situation where we could possibly be federalizing the police. And that makes me more nervous than anything else. Now, I know that a lot of libertarian philosophy says that the police are automatically bad because they're agents of the state. I understand that, and I understand where you're coming from on that. But I also look at the fact that when you're sitting with a local department, more so in small town America than in big city America, don't get me wrong, more so where I am than where some of you guys are, especially those of you in some of the bigger cities, and I know where some of you are in the suburbs of some of the bigger cities and in the bigger cities themselves. If I have a run-in with a police officer in town here, there's a good chance that I'm going to be sitting across from him at some point at one of the local breakfast nooks or one of the local restaurants, or run into him in the grocery store or the bank or something like that. There's a good chance that's going to happen at some point. When you start federalizing some of this stuff, and we talked about the Inspector General of the Post Office, the ICOP thing last night. These are faceless bureaucrat federal agents that come from D.C. that are specifically looking to apprehend people. It's not about the police and how bad the police are. It's about how bad the police that the federal government doesn't control are. And that's the narrative we're getting fed. And now we're putting a federal investigation into those same local police, who you still have to see in the grocery store, and you can still shame in the grocery store. So we'll see where that goes and what that means, but I see a lot of bloviating to an end of all federalized police, and I don't like seeing any of that. All right, let's keep going. A little bit of news from Tulsi Gabbard. From Newsweek. Tulsi Gabbard urges Americans to stop the racialization of everyone and everything. From Jason Lemon. Former Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, who represented Hawaii as a Democrat, urged Americans to stop the racialization of everyone and everything in a weekend Facebook post. Gabbard ran for the Democrat Party's 2020 presidential nomination, campaigning largely on bringing an end to America's forever wars. She also regularly criticized the mainstream media and establishment politicians. The former Democratic lawmaker served in Congress from 2013 until January of this year. She announced in October of 2019 that she would not seek re-election to the House of Representatives as she continued her ultimately unsuccessful campaign for president. My dear friends and fellow Americans, please let us stop the racialization of everyone and everything, i.e. racialism. We're all children of God and are therefore family in the truest sense, no matter what our race, ethnicity. This is aloha. This is what our country and world need, Gabbard wrote in a Sunday Facebook post, including a video where she shared the remarks. The former congresswoman argued that the mainstream media and politicians want us to constantly focus on our skin color and the skin color of others because it helps them politically or financially. She urged Americans to cultivate aloha in our hearts and not allow ourselves to be led down the dark, divisive path of racialism and hate. I sure do like Tulsi Gabbard. I know that her policies, both as an executive and even in Congress, would be disastrous to the U.S. economy and probably further tensions as we went down the economic slide that she could bring us down. But I sure do like her as a public speaker. Let her be an advisor. Let her be, well, she's going to have speaking tours and book fees for the rest of her life. So, and let her do like self-help books and stuff like that. But, keep her away from the levers of power. But I sure do like Tulsi Gabbard. She is a good person. All right, I got another one here archived from the USA Today. So this is going to be the interesting one, and we're going to see some of the stuff that could happen with this. So I'm going to take some time, we'll look into this one, and then we're going to fly through the next, I say 5 of them, just because they'll be based on individual states. But let's see what USA Today has to say. Census Bureau data release will reveal congressional district winners and losers. From Katie Waddington. The Census Bureau's first release of data from its 2020 survey will reveal population counts for the country and its states, along with winners and losers of congressional seats on Monday. The U.S. House of Representatives has 435 seats based on population. Every decade, as population shifts, the allotment of seats for each state may change based on updated data collected by the Census Bureau. States that have grown may gain House members at the expense of shrinking states. The population for apportionment includes residents of the 50 states plus overseas service members and federal civilian employees who are attached to their home state's tally, according to the Census Bureau. New congressional districts would take effect for the 2022 election. That puts added pressure on Democrats, who control the House by a slim margin of 218 to 212 with 5 seats vacant. The size of the House has not changed since 1913. And there you see a chart that's got some of the population changes, 2019 to 2020. And this is year over year. So I'm more interested to see what happens decade over decade, which that's going to be the real meat of where we're going to land with some of this. But, 69,532 down in California, minus 0.18%. Texas is up 373,965, up over almost 1.33%. Florida up 1.12%. New York down 0.65%. And that's just over the year, 2019 to 2020. But where are we on the decade? That's what I'm interested in, statistically, because that's what helps to shape our policy. The release of the apportionment numbers on Monday comes almost 4 months later than planned because of delays caused by the commie fucking coup and anomalies discovered in the data as the numbers were being crunched. The commie coup delayed delivery of census questionnaires for hard-to-reach populations during the 2020 spring quarantines and delayed operations since then to reach households that failed to respond. In December, political consulting firm Election Data Services used preliminary 2020 population data to preview potential winners and losers in reapportionment. According to its projections, 7 states would gain districts and 10 would lose districts. Texas stands to win big, adding 3 seats to its current 36. Florida could add 2, jumping to 29 seats among the 7 states poised to increase their voice in the House. Only Florida and North Carolina are on the East Coast, with Arizona, Colorado, Montana, and Oregon joining Texas in the West with population increases. Go West, young man. Haven't you been told? California's full of whiskey, women, and gold. In the loss column, West Virginia could lose a third of its 3 House seats, and Rhode Island could drop by half, just 1 seat. Traditional Democrat strongholds, California, Illinois, New York, all could lose a seat, and part of the blue wall that helped Joe Biden win the presidency, Michigan and Pennsylvania, may lose a seat as well. In 33 states, state legislatures take the lead role in determining how new districts are drawn, according to Ballotopedia. 8 other states use commissions to redistrict, and a hybrid model is used by 2 states. So that's a little bit of the general overview. It looks like a lot of things could happen with this. Let's have a look at some of the specifics. All right, first from CNN, the 6 biggest takeaways from the census reapportionment. This is an analysis. That means op-ed. From Chris Cillizza over at CNN. After months of waiting and delay, the U.S. Census Bureau finally released its final count of the country's population, and with it, the states will gain and lose congressional seats for the next decade. All right, let's see what the 6 points he has out here. The South and the West continue to seize more and more population and power. 6 states gaining House seats, Texas, Florida, Colorado, Montana, Oregon, and North Carolina, are in the 2 regions of the country that we've seen grow fastest over the past 3 decades. Since the 2000 census, for example, Texas has gained 8 seats, while Florida has gained 5, and Georgia have picked up 3 each. Arizona and Georgia have picked up 3 each. So that's across 2 censuses at this point. In fact, the 13 states that have gained seats in reapportionment since 2000 census, all 13 are either in the South or the West. While the Rust Belt continues to leak seats. Of the 7 states losing a district following the 2020 census, all but 2, California and New York, fall within the one-time manufacturing heart of the country. Pennsylvania has lost 4 seats since 2000, as has Ohio. Michigan is down 3. Ditto Illinois, the biggest loser of seats in the past 3 decades, however, is New York with 5. Well, and that's something to see as well. This next point is, I want to touch on this one just a sec, but this next one is the biggest one, and this is the biggest amount of cope that Cillizza is going to put up with. But looking at the Rust Belt, I mean, look at demographically what we're doing, especially since 2000. What did we do under the Obama years? We shed manufacturing jobs like fucking crazy, only having them come back over the last 4 years under Trump. And now we're looking at them going away again. But they didn't come back traditionally where they were because of union outreach and union pressure. In the Rust Belt states, the union has a stranglehold on your Minnesotas, your Wisconsins, your Illinois, your Michigans, Pennsylvania. They have a stranglehold in those states on all manufacturing. And yet, when the plants leave, they leave the country, they go to your China, India, Bangladesh, Afghanistan sometimes, India. I said India already. But they go over there to places like that. And then they come back to the U.S., and they don't go back to Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, Iowa, Pennsylvania, Ohio, places like that. Well, maybe Ohio. Ohio they seem to like still. But they don't go back to places like that. They go to Georgia for Boeing. They go down to Georgia. They go to Alabama. They go to Louisiana. And then they go back down to Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, California. So yes, the factory jobs are leaving the Rust Belt, so the people are leaving the Rust Belt because they're going to seek the factory jobs. All right. The electoral map doesn't change all that much. Oh, but it does. The expectations and projections going into this reapportionment were that the electoral map would move in favor of Republicans because of a major expected gain in Republican-friendly territory like Texas and Florida. But Texas gained only 2 seats and Florida just 1. In each case, the 1 seat fewer than most people had thought that they would. The shifts are still more helpful to a Republican presidential candidate come 2024, but only marginally so. If the 2020 election had been held under these new counts, Biden would have won with 303 electoral votes instead of 306. And he's the most popular president ever, and he got more votes than Barack Obama did, and more votes than any other candidate combined. Most popular president in history. Bullshit. What's going to shake down with this more than what's going to happen with presidential politics, which I know that's the holy mecca and the holy grail of the mainstream media right now is presidential politics, but really what this is going to come down to is what's going to happen in the House. The House is going to be the major one for this because Montana's gaining Texas is gaining seats. New York is losing a seat, which is probably going to bounce Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, de-twitch the fuck out of the running, finally. If I was smart, and if I was Cuomo, and the legislature sitting under Cuomo, that'd be the seat that would fucking go. Get rid of that one, and get rid of her with it. And the House map is going to change how policy goes in this country, including what's going to happen with the presidency. Because what are you going to do if you continue to elect a Democrat president forever and ever and ever, and he can never have a House majority, even a simple majority, or a Senate majority? Well, that's still going to be 2 per state, so that's going to be demographically more. But even still, with that, where the House map goes, that's going to affect how the Senate map goes as well, because a House and a Senate that's not doing anything is not going to be appealing to the majority of the American people. It'll be appealing to a person like me. But if you have a long-term hold in the House that's even slightly Republican, a Democrat Senate and a Democrat presidency are just going to sit and stagnate. All right, couple more. The long California boom is no more. Within the past 5 decades, California has been the population engine of the country. But now they're losing people for the first time in 50 years. Texas is the new political superpower. Sure, Texas gained 2 seats as opposed to the 3 that most people expected, but the addition means that the Lone Star State will have 38 House seats and 40 electoral college votes, beginning to rival the ongoing might of California. 54 electoral votes in 2024. Yep. Yeah, they're losing. I thought they had 57, so I didn't realize they were losing 3. I thought they were only losing 2, so it'd be 55. But that's only part of the story. While Texas remains a state that favors Republicans, former President Donald Trump carried it twice, and Senators John Cornyn and Ted Cruz were both reelected in the past 4 years in hugely expensive races. Democrats have clearly made the inroads over the past decade. Trump won the state by just 5.5 points in 2020, compared with W, who won Texas by 23 points in 2004. You are assuming in this statement that every Republican is Trump, and Trump is every Republican. Keep that in mind, and that's not even close to the way that politics works in this. Little Rhode Island isn't so little. For much of the past few years, the sort of people who follow the reapportionment process closely have expected that Rhode Island, the smallest state in the country by area, would lose one of its 2 House seats, relegating it to a single district state like Wyoming, South Dakota, and Delaware. But no, in maybe the biggest surprise of the reapportionment campaign, Rhode Island will keep both of its House seats, which is a major relief for Representatives David Cicilline and Jim Langevin, who are expecting to have to face off against each other for the state's single seat. Somewhere, Buddy Cianci is smiling. So, looks like Rhode Island's going to keep its seat after all. I thought that the previous article said that it was going to lose one, but it looks like they're going to keep one at all. So, a lot of stuff going on here. Let's look at some of the focuses on this. All right, Yahoo News says California loses House seat for the first time ever. For Brittany Bernstein, California will lose a House seat in the House of Representatives for the first time in history, the U.S. Census Bureau announced on Monday. The Golden State is one of 7 states that will lose a House seat based on population shifts, a group that includes New York, Illinois, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia. Meanwhile, Texas will gain 2 seats, and Colorado, Florida, Montana, North Carolina, and Oregon will each gain 1 seat. The shifting population is largely in line with the regional trend that has existed since 1940, in which there's an increase in the number of congressional seats in the House and West and a loss of seats in the Northeast and Midwest. Since 1940, there's been a combined net shift of 84 seats to the South and West regions, the Bureau said. The 2020 census will result in a shift of 7 seats among 13 states, the smallest number of seats shifting among the states in any decade since this current method of calculating apportionment was adopted. So California's down 1, which, are you surprised at this point? People are fleeing California left and right. And what happened in 2020 probably exacerbated that. They're probably lucky at this point that the census happened in 2020 and not 2021, where we're sitting down now facing a year-long lockdown. Gavin Newsom under a recall because he won't let the iron grip back up. I bet you California, if they'd have done this year instead of last year, would have lost more seats. Absolutely would. All right. Got one from the New York Post for you guys. New York will lose one congressional seat under new census data. From Bernadette Hogan and Tamar Lapine. Missed it by that much. New York will lose one seat in the House of Representatives. District 14. Based on the population data released by the U.S. Census Bureau on Monday, and it was just 89 residents short of keeping all of its seats. The Empire State's delegation will shrink from 27 to 26 as a result of the 2020 census, officials said. But that fate could have been avoided had 89 more New Yorkers been counted, said Kristen Koslap, senior technical expert for the 2020 census apportionment. There were 435 seats. The last seat went to Minnesota, and New York was next in line, Koslap said in a news conference. If you do the algebra equation that determines how many they would have needed, it's 89 people. Overall, New York actually saw its population grow by 4%, with the census finding about 20.2 million living in the state, up from just under 19.4 million in 2010. That rise, however, wasn't on pace with big jumps in other parts of the country. Census officials said the Empire State experienced negative net domestic migration, meaning there were more people fleeing than moving into the state over the last decade. How voters' districts will change won't be known until August at the earliest, when more detailed census data is expected. In New York, the redistricting process begins with a 10-member commission, which draws maps that are then submitted to the legislature for approval. So, they're going down one. And yeah, if they're smart, they'll take 14 out. If they're smart. Let's see. This is archived from M-Call, which I'm not sure what the publication is called. But Pennsylvania will lose a congressional seat in the reapportionment. From Tom Shortell. The U.S. Census Bureau announced Monday that Pennsylvania will lose a seat in Congress next year, complicating what's sure to be a contested redistricting process for the 2022 congressional race. In 2020, census found Pennsylvania's population grew by 2.4% over the past decade to 13,002,700 residents. However, that lags the nationwide 7.4% growth rate. With the House of Representatives limited to 435 seats, Pennsylvania will have to shed one of its 18 seats when the next Congress is sworn into office in 2023. Pennsylvania was one of the 7 states to lose a seat, along with California, Illinois, Michigan, New York, Ohio, West Virginia. Meanwhile, Colorado, Florida, Montana, North Carolina, and Oregon each gained a seat, while Texas gained 2. So, that's what's happening up in Pennsylvania. From the Sun Sentinel, Florida and Republicans are winners of the seats in Congress, from Anthony Mann. Florida is about to become a more powerful player in national politics based on census reapportionment numbers released Monday, part of an enormously important redistribution of power every 10 years. We gain clout, said former U.S. Representative Mark Foley, a Palm Beach County Republican. Our prestige increases. Florida's gain isn't as big as some had expected, however. First, the increased clout will come in the state's congressional delegation. Florida will gain 1 seat for a total of 28 in the 435-member House of Representatives, starting with next year's election for Congress. Second, it will come in the number of votes the state gets in the Electoral College, which determines who wins the presidency in 2024 and beyond. Florida will gain 1 electoral vote there as well, for a total of 30 out of the 538 electors. That means Florida will have more than a tenth of the 270 votes needed to win the presidency. Florida's population grew a lot between the official 2010 census and the 2020 count, which reflects the population as of April 1st. Florida's population was 21,538,000 187, an increase of 14.6 over the previous 10 years. That's huge. The nation's population as of April 1st was 332,449,281, an increase of 7.4% since 2010. Southern states grew the fastest, 10.2% over the past decade. Population was up 9.2% in the West, 4.1% in the Northeast, and 3.1% in the Midwest. Though Florida grew a lot, it wasn't as high as some expected. Many analysts thought Florida would gain 2 seats in the House and 2 electoral college votes. Though the state gained relative to most other states, it fell short of adding enough people to gain 2 more House seats and electoral votes. So Florida's going to be the big winner off of this, which, I mean, with people fleeing California, especially SoCal, I'm not surprised because that's going to be your closest climate equivalency to what SoCal looks like. So, congratulations to Florida. All right, those were the big movers and shakers as the census shakes out off of this. Let's talk about California for a second, a little bit more. Critics of California governor gather enough signatures to force a recall election. From Maeve Reston, Stella Chan, and Hyung La. Critics of California Governor Gavin Newsom have met the state's threshold with enough validated signatures to force a recall of the Democratic governor this year. A contest that could land on the ballot as early as the summer and as late as December. The recall had long been expected to qualify because it was driven by a well-organized grassroots group that gathers signatures in every county of the state, and backed by key Republican strategists in California who brought their fundraising heft and direct mail expertise to the effort. After largely ignoring the bid to force him out of his job, Newsom began mounting a formidable offensive fight to fight the recall earlier this year, but the California Democrat, who's often mentioned as a future contender for the White House, now enters a challenging new phase where he will be attempting to steer his state back to normal life as the pandemic recedes, while essentially running a full-time campaign to defend his job. Newsom's approval ratings are still above 50%. Bullshit. But he has put a great deal of effort into accelerating COVID-19 vaccinations to speed up the state's reopening. Setting a target of June 15th for when he hopes to lift all COVID-19 restrictions, but the recall has been fueled by anger over the restrictions he put in place to curb the spread of the coronavirus throughout last year and during an alarming surge in cases during the winter holiday months. California has been one of the slowest states to get children back to school. In LA, the second largest school district of the country, many children did not return to school in person until mid-April, infuriating parents who worried about their own ability to work and the many hours of instruction that their students have lost this year. So that's happening, and I don't know what it was that Republicans expected out of this. I know that they think now they're going to take the state. They're not. The jungle primary system, unless Caitlyn Jenner somehow miraculously shoots to the top of the jungle primary system, it's going to be Gavin Newsom Light is going to be the next governor of California. And furthermore, even if he does defend his job at this point, something else to consider off of this is the fact that living in Wisconsin, I know that a recalled governor can still run for president and get trounced by an orange man, but still, he can still run for president and be taken seriously. Remember Scott Walker? That was one of the biggest recalls in history because the union was so pissed off over Act 10. And of course, we all remember he won his recall campaign and went on to run for the presidency. All right, so that's what's happening in California. Let's grab one from Fox News for you guys. Let's do some border stuff, shall we?
Welcome back. There are some
Oh,
grim
fuck
new
your
numbers
autoplay.
for President Biden when it comes to the border. By a stark 46 to 15%.
White House insists that VP Harris's focus is not on the border, but on migration root causes. From Brooke Singman. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki on Monday maintained that Vice President Kamala Harris is not on the border but on the root causes of migration, amid heightened scrutiny over her new role and questions about why she has yet to visit the U.S. southern border. Last month, President Biden appointed Harris to serve as the administration's diplomatic liaison in talks with Mexico and the Northern Triangle nations, Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador, on how to best address the root causes of the migrant surge. During Monday's White House press briefing, Psaki was asked why Harris has not visited the border, a question she referred to the vice president's team. "But I would tell you that her focus is not on the border," Psaki said. "It's on addressing the root causes in the Northern Triangle. That's why the majority of her time has been spent working on the diplomatic level." And we're sitting here, we're talking about, doing the root causes of migration, but we won't sit back and address the root causes of what's happening in our African American neighborhoods and the way that they go with the police, because a lot more of that is the family and a lot less of that is actual policing. And honestly, a lot more of that is an excessive amount of laws, but we won't talk about that because, lawmakers are supposed to be holy and bright. But yes, Kamala she's not going to the border. She doesn't want to see that. She doesn't want to be implicated in that. She has plausible deniability right now. "I don't know what's happening down at the border. What are you talking about over there?" The Kamala cackle. Ted Cruz weighed in on this from Newsweek. Ted Cruz: "Kamala Harris's GPS got confused when she visited the wrong border." From Nicole Fellert. Republican Senator Ted Cruz of Texas joined the New Hampshire GOP in rebuking Vice President Kamala Harris for not yet visiting the escalating situation at the country's southwest border. Harris traveled to New Hampshire for the first time this week since 2019 when she was running for president as a California senator. Her return there was an effort to boost support for Democratic New Hampshire Senator Maggie Hassan, who is facing re-election in 2022. Cruz commented on a tweet Friday that Harris's GPS got confused when she visited the Granite State, echoing criticism for the state Republicans on the vice president's visit. The state's GOP called her out for coming to the wrong border, implying that Harris's time should be spent on the opposite end of the country, where she has reportedly yet to pay a visit, 30 days after President Biden tasked her with tackling diplomatic efforts with Mexico, El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras to stymie the current flow of migrants and develop long-term strategies targeted at the root causes of migration. As you travel over 2,300 miles away from El Paso, our country would be better served with an official visit to the southern border, not a campaign trip for Maggie Hassan, the New Hampshire GOP said in a Twitter response to Harris's visit. Yeah, once again, she doesn't really want to be implicated in this. She doesn't care about what's going on the border. She just has to put on a show. All right. Speaking of which, from the New York Post, Kamala isn't at the southern border, but migrant kids are getting the Veep's book. From Laura Italiano. Vice President Kamala Harris hasn't been to the border to address the crisis she was tasked to help fix, but a children's book she wrote is waiting there for young migrants who are being welcomed into the country. Unaccompanied migrant kids brought from the U.S.-Mexico border to a shelter in Long Beach, California, will be given a copy of her 2019 children's book, Superheroes Are Everywhere, in their welcome kits. It's just the latest open arms gesture that the Biden admin, whose mixed messaging regarding the border and immigration has been credited with the surge from Central America to the U.S.-Mexico border. Border czar Roberta Jackson last month conceded that the Biden admin's messaging to migrants has been inconsistent, contributing to the unprecedented surge. Whenever there's trouble, superheroes show up just in time, Harris tells kids in the book, shown sitting on a cot with more basic supplies at the Long Beach Convention and Entertainment Center, newly converted to deal with the spiraling illegal immigration influx. In the 30 days since President Biden asked Harris to lead the U.S. response to the record surge in migrants, she has yet to visit the border or hold a press conference on the matter. The administration has emphasized that she is addressing the root causes that lead people to flee Central America, not the surge itself. So, and there's a lot of stuff going on with this. Now, I don't know what the percentage of illegal immigration is that's going on in California at the California border that is being affected by the Long Beach facility. And we have heard no confirmation whether this is happening in the Donna facility or anywhere in Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, anywhere else along the border at this point. And it could be happening over there. We just don't know about it at this point. This is only happening in California. But with this happening in California, first and foremost, why are they getting Kamala Harris's book? And who's paying for it? This does nothing but benefit Kamala Harris financially, fiscally, because she gets the royalties off every one of those books that is sold. And if this is coming out of California, whether it's coming from ICE or the state of California, it's being bought by taxpayer money. Possibly not my taxpayer money, but at the very least, California taxpayer money. And yeah, I do have to wonder now if this is happening in Texas as well, or New Mexico, Arizona, and how much kickback the president is getting or the vice president is getting from this. But this is, I mean, we saw John Kerry. That's corruption out loud. This is corruption out loud. You know, we talked last night about the EV manufacturer that Biden's planning on giving a major contract to from the federal government, whereas his climate secretary has a hand in that company. So I'm looking at this, and I mean, we were told that the Trump administration was the most corrupted administration in history because he was out there making all his big business buddies rich. And now all I see out of the Biden admin is Biden making his big business buddies rich. But there's no complaint about it. From Newsweek, White House distances itself from Kamala Harris' book in migrant welcome packs. Of course they did. From Elizabeth Crisp. No taxpayer dollars are being used to supply migrant kids with care packages that included Vice President Kamala Harris' children's book, and the White House has denied any knowledge of this inclusion. I don't recall. But that's not stopping some Republicans from hammering the Biden admin over the issue. Photos of the children's book, Superheroes Are Everywhere, in packets handed out at the Long Beach Convention and Entertainment Center in California have spread online. But a White House official told Newsweek that it's part of a city donation effort to collect books and toys. The effort is organized by the Community Outreach working with companies. Harris wasn't aware of the efforts or her book would be included, the White House official said. The reference book was one of an assortment of hundreds of titles donated to the Long Beach Emergency Intake Site as part of the City of Long Beach New Books and Toys Drive. No taxpayer dollars were used to purchase the Vice President Harris's books, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services in a statement said to Newsweek. So no taxpayer funds were used for this, but I still have concerns with this, even if there were no taxpayer funds to this. And yes, it's very wise that the admin is coming out and distancing themselves from this because, okay, if this is getting included in every care package, maybe it's not done by the federal or the state taxpayers in California. But, here's Kamala Harris going to Long Beach, which she is a California senator too, by the way, and saying, you know what? Ain't nobody buying my book over here. So why don't you, as a charity out here, why don't you go up and buy up every copy of my book off the shelves, and we'll put that in the care packages for the migrant children. And, it'll be for nonprofits, so we can't trace it anyway. I'd like to see who is purchasing these books, because it's a relatively new book. It's not like something you're going to go pick up out of the free bin out of Goodwill. It's something that's going to be purchased in bulk and added to the donation list. So, and we would be hearing panic attacks if this was going the other direction. Sorry, my headphones are bugging with me here. Let's see if they go in the other direction any better. But that's where we're seeing out of that. I got another one from the New York Post on the same topic here. We got just a few more, then we'll do Twitter trending and head on out of here. Psaki has no answers when asked about Harris's book being given to child migrants. From Mark Moore. A White House press secretary, Jen Psaki, didn't have an answer Monday when pressed on the Post reports that a copy of Vice President Kamala Harris's children's book was being given to young migrants when they arrived to the border detention facilities in the U.S. She was asked at her daily briefing about whether Harris is making any money from it. Oh, she's making money from it. She just might not know it. And I will give the benefit of the doubt. She might not know it. It might actually be a private charity somewhere in California, which is her home state, going off and buying up these books and charitably donating it. I'd have to check with our Health and Human Services team, she responded, referring to the federal department that's responsible for the minors at the border. The book Superheroes Are Everywhere is included with Kids Welcome Kits. The reporter pressed Psaki. I have to certainly check on that. I hear it's a good book, Psaki. I hear it's a good book, Psaki said, seemingly to make light of the thousands of illegal minors being given the Beep's book upon their arrival at the overcrowded facilities after being apprehended. The Post on Friday reported that while the vice president herself has yet to travel to the border to gauge the crisis, her 2019 book has. Migrant children being brought to the federal shelter in Long Beach are given a copy of the book. Wait, she wrote this in 2019? Oh, that raises so many more questions to me. That raises so many more questions. All right. That's a good point, Shalaga, too. Reverse the parties. Imagine if it was Pence's book. Imagine the outrage if this was Mike Pence. Or, even worse, imagine the outrage if they were getting a copy of The Art of the Deal every time they came in over the border facility. I have the greatest book, okay? And all the migrant children who are going to come in, they're going to read this book. So if they do wind up staying, then we're gonna make business people out of them, and they're gonna be the most successful. The Art of the Deal. It's the greatest book in history, okay? Alright. I got an interesting one here that was brought to me from Seawall over in the Discord. Then I want to read through this and see what we can make sense out of. Minutes before Trump departed office, mysterious Florida company reportedly took over a slice of the Pentagon's internet space. A mysterious Florida company is said to have taken control of a substantial portion of the internet owned by the Pentagon only 3 minutes before President Trump's official term ended in office. Since then, the company has increased its control to about 175 million IP addresses. The Washington Post reported on Saturday. The AP reported that it controlled more space than some of the world's largest internet providers, including Comcast and AT&T. The company was identified as Global Resource Systems, LLC, headquartered in Plantation, Florida. According to Florida State Records, Global Resource Systems filed paperwork in October 2020. The paperwork said it was incorporated in Delaware. A DoD spokesperson told the AP in a statement that the government was publicizing the space to assess, evaluate, and prevent unauthorized use of DoD IP address space. On Twitter, on Saturday, the AP posted, "What a Pentagon spokesperson could not explain is why the Defense Department chose Global Resource Systems, LLC, a company that seems not to have existed until September, to manage the address space." A Saturday blog post from Doug Midori, a director of Internet Analysis at Kentic, a networking information provider, detailed the great mystery. On Inauguration Day at 1657 UTC, or 11:57 a.m. in Washington, a message was posted by an entity that hadn't been heard from in over a decade, Midori wrote. The post came from AS 8003, announced it had taken over unused ranges of the IPv4 internet space owned by the Department of Defense, according to Midori. He wrote that timing was moments after the swearing in of Joe Biden as the president of the U.S. and minutes before the statutory end of the administration of Donald Trump at noon Eastern Time. Well, I have questions. But unfortunately, they're all partisan at this point because the company is based in Florida, where Mar-a-Lago is, and it's originated from Delaware, where Biden hails from. So this is definitely interesting. I'm kind of interesting to see where this goes and what this means. And I might actually have to have my friend Seawall explain a little bit this to me because I don't necessarily know what's going on with this either. A little bit in the dark about IT and what this means. So I'll have Seawall sit down and explain why this is important. But still interesting to see because, I mean, you're in that little space between when Biden took office and when Trump left office officially. You know, for 3 minutes we had two presidents. Interesting to see. All right, from the Daily Wire. Cumulus Media employees are required to receive COVID vaccine before returning to the office, leaked memo reveals. From Beth Bauman. Atlanta-based Cumulus Media, the third largest owner and operator of radio stations in America, is allegedly requiring every employee to be 100% vaccinated against the commie coof in order to return to the office, internal documents obtained by the Daily Wire reveal. According to the memo, no employees are required to show up to the office for work through at least July 1st, 2021. Beginning May 1st, employees can voluntarily return to the office, but they must be 100% vaccinated. They must also continue to wear masks and practice social distancing while in the office. And, well, here's the breakdown of this. Now, it is within Cumulus Media's, it's within their right as a private company and private property to do this. But I really hope and pray that all their employees have the good sense to look at this and say, fuck that, I'm not going to work for Cumulus Media anymore because that's bullshit. Just because they have the fundamental right to do so doesn't mean that it's a good idea. It's the same thing. I mean, it's what was it? Not Ian Malcolm, that was the lawyer. Was it the lawyer? Ian Malcolm? In Jurassic Park? Yeah, it was the lawyer. We spent so much time focusing on whether or not we could, we never thought to ask ourselves whether or not we should. And that's exactly what's going on with this as well. Cumulus Media, yes, they can. Yes, they can absolutely require. You have full commie-coof vaccination status, and you still have to wear a mask on the property. But it's a shitty move. And yes, I would not be surprised if all these people look at this and say, fuck that, I'm out. Because as I've been saying since the beginning, since the vaccine came out and they first started talking about mandatory vaccines, and my interest in the vaccine waned significantly after that. Good ideas are rarely mandatory. All right, from the Blaze. Alaska Airlines bans state lawmaker over mask dispute, so she's forced to take 19-hour trip by ferry and road to the capital. From Carlos Garcia. An Alaska state lawmaker was forced to take a 19-hour road trip and ferry trip to the capital after Alaska Airlines banned her over refusal to follow the mask requirements. We have notified Senator Laura Reinhold that she is not permitted to fly with us for her continued refusal to comply with an employee instruction regarding the current mask policy, said Alaska Airlines spokesperson to the Anchorage Daily News on Saturday. Reinhold, a Republican who has been very vocal about her resentment over the airline's mask policy. On Sunday, she posted photos from her ferry trip back to Juneau on Facebook. Alaska, I went to new heights to serve you and have a new appreciation for the marine ferry system. I'm keenly aware of the monopoly in air transport to Juneau that needs to be reviewed. Please thank my husband for giving up his birthday to make the long, unexpected trip to Juneau by road ferry system, she wrote in part. The New York Times, a former newspaper, reported that without taking a flight, the trip from the Anchorage area to Juneau by ferry and road takes more than 19 hours. Reinbold complained on Facebook that the ban was implemented without any warning. There was no due process before a temporary decision that is under review was made public, she said. Alaska Airlines sent information, including my name, to the media without my knowledge nor permission. I do believe constitutional rights are at risk under corporate COVID policies. Well, if you're going to, and if they just went out and said, okay, well, you refused us once and you're banned, that's kind of shitty on the business part, and nobody should fly Alaska Airlines anyway, in spite of the fact that they have the monopoly. You should find other ways to do so. But also, if you are an elected official, especially if you are an elected official, you should be abiding by your state's private company's guidelines as well, or not use that company. And once again, if the companies start to see that they're losing customers over doing bullshit like this, then they will change their tune in a hurry. Your private dollar does make a big difference to these companies. Now, yes, they are being bailed out by public dollars as well at this point, but your private dollar does make a business to these companies. And if they're not filling planes, they're not making money. So there are a lot of things that go along with this, but for the most part, this is another situation, just like we saw with the guy from Michigan earlier on in the program, where everyone's an asshole. Everyone's kind of a dick in this situation. All right, that's what we see for that. And the last one that I have for this comes from our friend Josh Hawley over in Missouri. This comes to us via Yahoo News from Business Insider. Senator Josh Hawley wants to send $1,000 monthly checks to families with kids under 13, but provide less to single parents. While that violates equal protection. From Joseph Zabalos Roig. Senator Josh Hawley introduced a plan for the parent tax credit on Monday, aimed at offsetting the high cost of raising a child. It reflects a push among some conservatives to increase federal spending on families. The proposal would establish a new fully refundable tax credit of $6,000 for single parents and $12,000 for couples, meaning families with minuscule or no tax obligations would qualify for a payment. Millions of working people want to start a family and would like to care for their children at home, but current policies do not respect these preferences, Hawley said in a news release. American families should be supported no matter how they choose to care for kids. To get the money, households must report earnings of $7,540 for the previous year, an amount equal to 20 hours of work a week at the $7.25 federal minimum wage. The earnings flood is the same regardless of whether a person is married, and families do not receive more cash if they have more than one child. Families would sign up for the plan through the IRS. The spokesman for Hawley told Insider the program would be in addition to the existing child tax credit. The proposal did not include a cost estimate. The current child tax credit provides up to $2,000 per child, though it leaves out families with small tax bills. Democrats beefed it up for a year in President Joe Biden's stimulus law to $3,600 per child ages 5 and under, and $3,000 for each kid between 6 and 7. Democrats want to keep it permanently. Well, taxation is theft, so any way that people can get around the taxation makes me a happy guy. But, there are a couple other things that go along with this as well, and really, honestly, A, we're violating equal protection with the single family thing, but B, this sounds a lot like UBI for people with kids. I understand incentivizing building the new next generation, which the millennial generation has been very, very lax to do. But now we're here. Now we're talking about giving more money to these families through a tax credit, but also increasing this to include families that don't have a big enough tax burden to qualify for this otherwise. But that's what Hawley's going to do. All right, and that's going to be it for the news for the day. The last thing that we do On Tuesday is Twitter trending for the day. So let's see what's trending. I've got 8 notifications. That's trending. I sometimes go entire days without notifications, and yet I can still get 8 during Contemporary, which means I think you guys are involved with that. And thank you for that too, by the way. All right, number 1 trend for the day, Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson is criticized after telling people not to wear masks, which is advised by the CDC to help stop the spread of COVID-19. Tim Young says now the left has labeled Tucker Carlson a national security threat. Okay, cry more. Masks are purely a sign of political obedience, like Kim Il-sung pins on Pyongyang. We wear them because we have to. It's our job to restore the society we were born in. Children forced to wear masks outside is a form of child abuse. Of course, Marjorie Taylor Greene had to weigh in on this because she's Marjorie Taylor fucking Greene. MTG is a plant. And yeah, I mean, Tucker's absolutely right off of this. It is a sign of political obedience at this point. Political and social obedience. Do what we say. And yes, my faith in humanity was restored yesterday because the local Quick Trip doesn't have a mask mandate anymore. They took all their signs down. You can walk in there free and clear, which means they are going to be the ones who are going to get a lot of my business at this point. All right, let's see. Tell a story in 5 words. Storytellers get creative and share their 5-word masterpieces. Here's my 5-word story. I'm going to tell a story in 5 words for you guys already. My live chat is awesome. Tell a story in 5 words. Let's see. She wrote how she felt. Tell a story in 5 words. Oh, that's awesome. If you're listening back on the audio right now, you see clothesline with pants hanging up there. And they're arranged in a way that when the shadow casts, it says, twat. I love it. I like that one. I like that one a lot. Tell a story in 5 words. Girl turns prince into commoner. Oof. Let's see. Was a victim, now free. Tell a story in 5 words. I'm Earl, an adventurer squirrel. Alright, there's your story in 5 words. Numerous of them, in fact. Alright, the third one we'll do, because we skip all the Tuesday trending stuff. Super Mario Party! After more than 2 years, Nintendo releases a new Super Mario Party update with online play options. I've never played Super Mario Party. I've never played a Mario Party game anywhere since Mario Party came out for the Nintendo 64. I've never played a Mario Party game. But we've got mini games, 2 versus 2. They've got online play now, so, well, maybe I'd have to get a console that can support Mario Party, but I've never once played a Mario Party game. Ever. Alright, that's 3. Number 4, which is our number 5. Aaron Taylor Johnson. I don't know who that is. I bet you we're about to find out. Streets are saying Aaron Taylor Johnson's getting divorced. Them good days when SDA was talking about are finally here. Aaron Taylor Johnson divorce. I'll be waiting with open arms. Why am I hearing that Aaron Taylor Johnson and Sam might be splitting up? Aaron Taylor Johnson divorcing his wife. Let the Hunger Games begin. So, I don't know who this person is. But apparently people are excited over the fact that he's getting a divorce, which is kind of shitty. To be completely honest. I'm not going to lie. Why are you celebrating divorce? I don't know. But they're celebrating divorce at this point. All right. We need to hit one more, don't we? Yep, one more. Steve Harvey. And that'll give us our 5 top trends without the Tuesday vibes. Steve Harvey is trending. I'm a little scared, I'm not going to lie. Steve Harvey to have any female friends when he gets denied, like, what? Say, I only see women as sexual objects without saying it. So let's see what he had to say. Because I'm pretty sure this is going to be why he was trending.
All of my friends are men. I don't have female friends. I don't. I'm incapable of that.
Why? What do you mean?
Well, because, you know, come on.
Because you have a wife.
Well, I have a wife, and I don't really have female friends because, look, okay, let's get rid of this myth right here. Okay, I'm going to tell you this. Let's get rid of this right here. You're an attractive woman. There's some guy somewhere saying, yeah, we're friends. No, that's not true. He's your friend only because you have made it absolutely clear that nothing else is happening except this friendship we have. We remain your friends in hopes that one day there'll be a crack in the door, a chink in the armor, and trust and believe that guy that you think is just your buddy, he will slide in that crack the moment he gets the opportunity.
And you think
we're
most
guys.
men think this way?
99.9% of us think that way. All of my friends are men. I don't have female friends.
I'm a little bit on the fence about that because I do have some female friends that just knowing and yes, they are attractive, but just knowing that sliding into that crack would complicate everything to a point where it can't be complicated. Like Elaine is my friend, and no, there's no crack in the armor, and I enjoy having Elaine around, but there's no crack in the armor that would bring me off onto that foot, because then I would lose the best co-host and probably the best friend that I've ever had. So there's ways you can do this, but I also know that there are others, and there are guys out there that are like that. So I'm about 50-50 on what Steve Harvey had to say. Probably about exactly halfway, and mostly it's pragmatic. It's less about whether or not you're actually attracted to the woman or not, and more about the fact of you have to assess what your life is like and what could happen if you do slide into that. Like the girl that used to cut my hair when I still had massive OCD, and I could only have one person cut my hair at the time. That girl was absolutely my type. I would have never once thought about that, because then I'd have to go find someone new to cut my hair. And as bad as my OCD was at the time, there was no way in hell that was happening. I would have gone into a full panic attack. So, 50-50. I understand the urges are out there, and I understand where it goes with that, but also, a lot of men have the ability to assess what's going to be best for their lives as well. So, yeah. Half and half. We'll give him half and half on that one. All right, and that is going to be it for the day here. So let's throw some music up and get out of here. I don't have music up because I shut it down because it was screwing up last night. Where's my scene change? There it is. All right, there's that. Let's get that started, and let's get out of here for the day. So I want to thank everybody who chatted in the live chat with you guys. I apologize, I didn't fix the Nightbot last night, but I'll get some of that coming back out of here as well. Jeez. Yes, there's one way I want to open it. It's the same way I've always opened this kind of file. All right, but yeah, thanks everybody who chatted in the live chat today. Remember, if you're just lurking right now, get those last minute messages in. And I will fix the robot too, so it's not spamming as many messages in here. I thought, especially when sometimes when Elaine and I get going, we've got a lot of people in the chat talking. It's not as bad as it looks now with only a few people talking, but we're still going to tone that down just a little bit so you don't see all those messages all the time. So keep an eye out for that. Otherwise, we'll be back here tomorrow with more contemporary, and we'll see what else is going on with news here, because I'm sure especially with the Tucker thing, everyone else is going to blow up as well. So looking forward to that. Looking forward to seeing you guys tomorrow. Until then, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.